welcome back to part 2 in this mini-series with Dhroov, where we talk to Dhroov about his BMW G87 M2 in Zandvoort Blue. In the first episode, Dhroov talked to us about his cracking finance deal on the M2. In this episode, Dhroov tells us how he feels about the car after the first few weeks, and I give my view on it too. I'm Jats, and you are watching The T-Junction. So for anybody that thinks it's a heavy car, it's a bit lardy, and all the rest of it, I would say just go out and drive one.
Yeah. I've had it for just over 6 weeks, so coming up to 2 months now.
Okay.
It's been brilliant. I mean, I have a very, very long commute to work of 4 miles. But they're the most fun 4 miles that I have to do, and I really look forward to them.
Right. So the thing is, this is a manual gearbox. Now, I know the Honda Civic had probably, well, arguably one of the best manual gearboxes you can get. Now, incidentally, if you want to see my review of Dhroov's Honda Civic Type R, click on the link in the description of this video. As soon as that video has been released, I'll make sure that it's actually in there and updated, so you'll be able to access that. But Dhroov, yeah, so you are driving one of the best manuals around, and you've gone to this where other people will tell you it's got a rubbery gear change and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Just tell me what your take on this is, because you're not a BMW person, I know that.
No, and you're right, you know, you're used to a really lovely steering and an amazing gearbox, and that whole connection is unreal. Like, you really do feel like a driving genius. Yeah. And then you jump in BMW, which has got an amazing sounding engine. Yeah. Sounds great, feels great to drive. You feel a bit more like a king of the road. Yeah. But the steering's a little bit more numb, and the gearbox is a little bit more rubbery. It has to be said. Okay. Yeah. It's still a manual gearbox. You know, at the end of the day, what other performance car gives you a manual gearbox? You're probably looking at Porsches. Yeah. And that's it. There's no other M car that has a manual gearbox.
I can tell you now, this isn't as good as a Porsche gearbox.
No.
But
at least it's a manual.
And the thing that I noticed when I've driven this car, how slick and precise the gear change is, because there is a very clearly defined H-gate. Yes. And I think the only thing that detracts is that slightly plastic gated feel that it has. Now, I have owned quite a few old BMWs in the past, all manuals. Yes. And whilst they had a slightly longer throw, you know, and I'm going back to E21s, E24s, E28s, E34s, the whole shebang, there was always this slightly long-legged feel of going into first with a plastic sort of feel. Got you. This does have that.
If I had an automatic right now, I'd have to press a couple of buttons and you'd shoot off into the distance. Yeah. But when you've got a manual,
there you go.
Just sounds amazing, and you just feel so much more engaged with that whole driving process. It's so much more fun.
You know, take this on a track and an automatic will run rings around it. Yeah. Right? There's no question about that. But actually, who's going to be enjoying themselves more? Correct. And that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I can tell you from my experience of driving the new G87 M4, which was automatic, this car does feel better to me as a petrol head, as somebody who enjoys driving their car. Yeah, yeah. This doesn't have as much power. It's 50 brake horsepower down. Yeah. Okay. It's got less torque. Yeah. But straight line performance isn't that far apart, really. No, in the grand scheme of things, you know, on a normal road, it's way more than adequate.
Oh, 100%. I mean, what, 463 brake horsepower? Yeah. When do I ever going to be using 463 brake horsepower?
Well, you're not really.
Never really. Exactly that,
it's
right?
Just very rare.
In an automatic car, it will never be the same. You know, you're threading a needle in your PlayStation, and it feels fine.
That's right. You know, cars are machines. Yes. Right? And these are machines that you feel with your senses. Yeah. This is probably the best M car that BMW make right now. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is, it's almost an M4. Yes. But it's 20 grand cheaper. Right? 20 grand cheaper. And the price you paid for this, it's about 35 grand cheaper.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
So then all of a sudden you start thinking, well, I'm in a modern M car. Yeah. I've got the screen. Yep. I've got everything. I've got the same platform. I've got the same engine. It's essentially the same car underneath. It is. Slightly shorter wheelbase. Yes. And the thing that really surprised me when I drove this car was, even though it's only 50 kilos lighter than the M4, and I find that mind-boggling, especially when you consider that the M4 has X-Drive and it's a bigger car. It's only 50 kilos
How's
lighter.
it close, right? Yeah.
Why is it that close? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I found as well with this car was it doesn't feel its weight in the same way the M4 feels its weight.
No, I mean, you've driven this.
Yeah.
And I'm we'll do a swap over in a few minutes, but
sure.
The only time that I feel the weight in this car is under braking. The Honda was about 1,400 kilograms.
Yes.
Significantly lighter, over 300 kilograms lighter.
But it was very nose heavy, wasn't it?
Very nose heavy.
Yeah.
So, and a front wheel drive, it's a different way of driving altogether. But this does not feel that much heavier than that.
And that's the other thing as well.
Yeah.
Not once in this car, with it only being, because I thought, rear wheel drive, this car is going to be an absolute handful to drive.
You were worried at the start, I remember you saying,
I remember having that conversation with you and saying, look, you've driven front wheel drive cars only.
Yeah.
This has got a lot more performance. It's rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
I've driven rear wheel drive BMWs of old, and I know how tail happy they can be.
Yes.
This is nothing like that. In the dry, and this isn't even running Michelin MPS4s, is it? This has got P0s on it. It's one of the very few, I think, M cars that are out there with P0s from factory. And the tyres are great.
That's fine.
I can't really fault them.
No, absolutely fine. But, to break traction in this car,
you're going to be going some, or it's going to be quite wet.
It's going to be wet. I think when it's wet, absolutely, it spins its wheels for fun. But in the dry, unflappable.
But I think, but do you not think it actually makes it more playful?
Because it's
rear wheel drive and in the wet, and when it can be a little. It's not challenging in any way. It's got a real personality to it, and I think the MDM and everything else that this car's got actually do help it just rein it all in.
Absolutely.
When it starts getting a bit leery.
Yeah.
I've never really, there's only one or two areas around where I live where I think this car is losing traction, but generally speaking, it's absolutely fine.
It's really good. It's really, really good. The Honda, in comparison, that had MPS4s on it from factory, star marked.
Yeah.
That used to wheel hop and spin its wheels and all sorts all the time. And you'd be pulling away at a junction and you're thinking, why am I spinning my wheels for no reason?
Doing
it's
nothing,
crazy. Yeah. So this is so different.
It's more grown up, isn't it?
Very grown up.
Yeah.
Very, very grown up in comparison. Yeah. But no, I absolutely love this thing. Going back to how long I've had this car for 6 weeks or so. Absolutely love it. I can't stop driving it. Even today, I don't want to hand it over to you. I'm driving it today.
It's my car.
It's absolutely. Yeah.
So Dhroov, one question I do have for you though.
Yeah.
Why didn't you go for the LC 500 or the 911?
Okay, really interesting. So the 911, I was in contact with a salesman, and it was on the list of going to have a look at one, but it was slightly above budget, and I wasn't quite sure if it was the right car for me at the time. Did I need a car as big as that, etc., etc. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, I needed that as a mandatory thing, and it wasn't really an option on the Lexus. That's one thing. The second thing, I never even got to Lexus. So,
and pray, why not?
Because I was distracted by your suggestion on the BMW dealership. So, yeah.
But my suggestion to you for the BMW wasn't to plug BMW in anywhere at all.
No.
We were driving past, and I thought, something, you're not a BMW person, just have a look at an Alpina, because that's what we really went there to have a look at, didn't we? The Alpina V4 that I knew was sitting out there in the forecourt in front of that showroom.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you wanted to go and have a look at the Alpine, and you dragged me along with you. Yeah.
I was pretty sure in my mind that you wouldn't be interested in BMWs anyway. You never have been.
No.
But here we are.
The world is a weird place,
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a baby M car at all.
No.
To me, it feels no different to the M4. Just pootling around like this. But I have to say one thing that's really apparent to me is that the M4 felt so much bigger than this. The other thing I found with the M4 was the weight shift that you could feel just driving around in comfort mode.
Yeah.
You actually felt the car do the old weight shifty thing.
100%.
It felt a bit like a boat.
It did. It wobbles.
A little bit.
It wobbles around corners slightly as it's trying to shimmy itself round, right?
This doesn't do that.
No.
So for anybody that thinks it's a heavy car, it's a bit lardy and all the rest of it, I would say just go out and drive one.
Yeah.
You'll be pleasantly surprised how good it is.
I think that, it really makes me question, why do people go for the M4? I know the M4's got status. I understand that completely. But to actually drive, if you're a driver and you want an automatic, go for an automatic M2. Or even better yet, I know that what your belief is on the whole the 2 Series platform.
Yeah.
What would you rather have, M2 or M240i?
Well, this is the thing, you see. This is a very interesting question, because just driving around like this right now, for me, the M240i, I know it only comes in automatic, but it has the added benefit of xDrive, which is quite useful, especially in the UK. Our roads are a bit crap, where there's always rubbish. And it gives you that assurance. But you're saving £20,000. Now, if you can live with an automatic gearbox, I wouldn't buy the automatic M2. I'd probably buy an M2 40i. I would take it to Auto ID or somewhere like Evolve, get them to run their magic on that car, and you will end up with a car that might not look as good as an M2. It'll get closer.
Yes.
The performance will be better probably because of the X-Drive system. And it's got MDM, it's got all the things that the superior M cars have. It's not that inferior, I don't think, technically. And I know it's got the B58 engine in it, not the S58. But a little bit of tweaking will bring the power curve right up there.
Absolutely.
So, you know, my view on it is, if you're looking seriously at buying an M2, the G87 model, you might want to just drive the M2 40i back to back, pretty much as we've done, I suppose you could say. And it'll give you a completely different feel. Now, I know you've got a very different view on this, haven't you?
Yeah, my view is, well, I'm not really a brand snob in that, you know, I drove a Honda Civic Type R, which, you know, is a top-of-the-range Honda, but the fact that it was a Honda never really bothered me. And I had comments from clients that I work with, I had comments from family members, why are you driving a Honda? And it never really made any sense to me. I was thinking, you've got no idea how amazing this thing is to drive. You've got no idea, and nobody really got it. A few of my friends did, and, you know, people who, you know, appreciate their cars and their driving, etc. But most people never really got it. But with this, I would say an M car, it needs to be a full fat M car. An M240i is an M Lite, like we say, right?
That, I don't think, is any slower than an M4. It doesn't feel anything less, does it?
This feels the same as one of its bigger brothers, right? Yeah. And because it's the same platform, it's the same width, it's the same interior. The actual interior is taken out of an M3, M4 and put straight into this. So everything's the same, will fit straight in. You know, even little things like the wing mirrors are the same. The roof is very, very similar. Yeah. You know, it's...
Here in the UK, we're quite lucky because this is the pre-facelift model.
Yes.
And it's got carbon everywhere inside. It's got a carbon roof.
Being a 2024 model, it's got loads of extras, and this car came with everything that I needed when I was looking for something. It had Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and it drives amazing. So you know, that's what I really needed in a car. I've done one motorway journey in it, which was, you know, about 120 miles each way, and that was amazing. I didn't really feel tired in it, less tired than I did so when I was driving the Honda. And it was great fun. It was really, really good fun on the motorway.
But you wouldn't buy an M240i, would you?
No, I wouldn't. Absolutely not. No, it doesn't interest me. I want a manual, and I like my driving. Even if I'm stuck in traffic, I'd rather have a manual. Call me weird, because a lot of people do, but I would much rather have a manual. Occasionally, I have to drive an automatic car that, you know, somebody else in the family owns.
Sure.
And I begrudgingly take it, and I think, oh God, get me back in the Mazda, get me back in the Honda, get me back in the BMW, get me back in something else that's got a manual gearbox.
Yeah. The M4 that I drove had carbon bucket seats. I think it was the same as the one you drove as well. That had carbon bucket seats in there as well.
With the shelf.
Yeah, with the little, I call it the cricket box actually, because if you were driving a manual, you were trying to move your legs around with that cricket box. It would feel like wearing a cricket box and trying to drive. Not very comfortable.
No, I think just the position of that tray means that every time you go for the clutch, because the pedals are offset to the right in the UK, you just bash your leg against it. It's just not comfortable.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because that's something that I was going to mention. The pedals in this car are somewhere up there on the right-hand side. Your foot, goes onto the brake pedal rather than the accelerator.
Yes.
It's almost that skewy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a whole pedal away.
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of getting used to, and you're kind of sitting like that. But once you're used to the fact that you're drifting everywhere, then you're all right. It's fine. Yeah.
I've just put the exhaust on now.
Oh, have you? M1. Nice.
And that's the other thing about this car as well. There are so many features and so many adjustments that you can make to personalize the car for whatever you want it to do. Now, we're just ambling around right now doing 20 to 21 miles an hour, okay? And it feels incredibly comfortable. It doesn't, the clutch is light. The clutch action and the engagement is pretty much perfect, really. The gear shift itself is no chore at all. It's a very light short throw, as we talked about earlier. So there's no issues there. The steering itself, a little bit numb, but that's electric steering.
It is what it is, right?
In fact, I would say it probably doesn't feel as good as the Hondas.
No. I think there's a couple of things that contribute towards that. I think the first thing is Honda have nailed it. And the second thing is the steering rim width in a BMW.
Yeah, it's quite thick, isn't it?
Very thick in comparison. The Honda was Alcantara and quite slim.
Yeah.
Compared to the Mazda that I've got. Which I think you've sat in. I don't know if you've driven it, but really tiny little steering wheel, and the amount of feedback you get from something that's uncushioned is brilliant. Feels great when you're driving it.
It does, and it's a little bit. I've driven Mazda MX-5s, Porsche Boxster 996s. They're very similar. They've got this harder feel to the steering, and it communicates better from the wheels, I think. This is padded, and I think some of that transmission from wheels to your hands gets lost actually in the padding. I'm sure that's what's happening.
But there must be a reason for it. Surely
it's a BMW thing, isn't it?
Surely there's a focus group somewhere that says, no, I'm an M car driver, I'm a man, I must have a thick steering wheel because I'm a man.
Could be.
It works. It does work. I do feel like a king of the road driving it. Yeah.
You do. You do. The other thing as well then, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or outside the room in this case.
Okay.
And that is the looks of this car.
Yeah.
Because when I first, when you said to me, I'm going to buy the M2, and I said to you, it looks as if it's made of Lego, I was being serious, because for me, I think the looks are very subjective, and they do grow on you, like most modern BMWs right now. I mean, they look like something out of an Angry Birds movie.
There's something very wrong with BMW's design department
philosophy, and when you look at the new, facelifted 1 Series, and I look at that and I think, is that a Corolla or a Yaris, or what
is it a Kia? Is it a Ford Focus?
They seem to have just lost their way a little bit. This car, with its angles, because there's right angles, rectangles and squares on the whole of the front of this car. And it can be a little bit off-putting when you first see it. Now, this car's in Zandvoort blue, and it really accentuates all those squares, I think.
I think it does. It really, because it's a bright colour, it's a highlighter colour, people look at it no matter what. It really stands it out. If you had black, it hides a lot of those angles.
I think so.
Right? But I think this is a very aggressive looking car. Whether or not it's a good looking car, I think is very subjective. It's really grown on me. It's really grown on me. I think from certain angles, like you say, it looks stunning.
It's a little bit, I don't think it's quite as in your face as the Honda Civic FK8 was.
No.
Because that was really subjective. I mean, but then, like I say, I always say this, about the Honda Civic Type R. Nobody criticises a supercar for looking the way it does, right?
No.
The first time I saw a Zonda, I thought, what on earth is that? The first time I saw an Aventador, I thought, my goodness gracious me.
What have they done?
And when I saw the FK8, I thought, oh, blimey. And they're all very similar in that respect. But, those cars are at the top of their game, in terms of, like, the Lamborghinis and so on. And so is the Civic Type R, because I still happen to think that's the best hot hatch around.
Definitely.
Because it's still got the old, front heavy, front wheel drive. Everything's at the front, basically. None of this 4-wheel drive malarkey going on. And it just feels like a proper hooligan when you drive it.
It does, completely.
And that takes me back to the 80s, when I used to drive cars like that. So it does, for me, for people of my age and my sort of...
the generation, right?
My generation, that's what I meant to say. You could argue that, that Honda Civic Type R was a proper hot hatch.
Yes. I mean,
this to me, with the rear-wheel drive manual gearbox, 6-cylinder engine at the front, 50-50 weight distribution, and all the rest of it, this again harks back to a BMW E30 or an E46, an E36. All cars that I've driven before, and yes, this is a lot more modern. This is incredibly refined inside. You can just pootle around in this and not even realise you're in an M car.
In a manual, a Civic Type R, manual M2, you have to have some sort of driving experience / talent in order to drive this quickly. Drive this quickly. You can miss shift, you can cause problems, you can not be clutching properly. It's a totally different type of car altogether. So, as someone with a little bit of ego, I think it's quite nice to have that. The second, the second thing, you mentioned about the E30s and the E36 and E46, some of the older generations of BMW that this is kind of linked to. Number one, I think the rear arches on this car look a little bit E30.
Yes,
like
E30 M3.
E30 M3. The wider stance, the rear track that it's got that beautiful.
The bulges
looks great.
Are great.
And I'm sure BMW done that on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing, in terms of actual dimensions of this car,
Yeah.
It's only a few centimeters, I think 5 centimeters longer than an E46. Oh, nice 128 Ti there. It's only a few centimeters longer than an E46 M3.
Right.
So,
yeah.
The current 3 Series now is actually quite a big car.
Yeah, it's almost the size of a 5 Series from not that many generations ago.
Absolutely. And you know, this is more old M3 than the new M3 is old M3, if you know what I'm trying to say, right?
It's almost like the M3, you know, the M4 has become the M3 because it's got 2 doors, and they've become quite big and lardy.
Look at the new M5.
This is going back, isn't it? This is almost sort of like bringing back some of the aficionados, you know, the people who have driven M3s before and loved them, thought the current M3 and M4 were getting a bit too big. Try one of these.
Absolutely.
That's all I can say.
Absolutely. No, it's a great car. And it sounds great, drives great. It is a very, very, very good daily.
So I'm going to give you my likes and dislikes of this car.
Okay.
I think we've touched on quite a lot of it already, but my likes of this car are the way it drives. I think it is absolutely fantastic. And this 6-speed manual gearbox, coupled with this engine and the drivetrain and the way it's poise and balance and everything else, is absolutely incredible. I think it's a really, really good car. Pound for pound, the best brand new M car that you can buy right now is this, the M2.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want space and practicality, then by all means go and get, you know, the touring version of the M3. That's fine.
Agreed.
So that's one thing that I like. I love the fit and finish in this car. It feels very premium, very upmarket. And you wouldn't know that you're driving an M2. You'd think you're in an M4 or an M3.
Yeah.
The interior is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, there's not been a squeak or rattle in this car once.
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
It's just solid, rock solid.
Yeah.
Okay. The things that I don't like about this car, well, the looks.
Fine.
I'm a little bit subjective about it, but I think it does grow on you, as you say, and I haven't lived with this car, so I've not given it's not given me the opportunity to fall in love with it yet properly.
I think having a controversial car is always quite fun, because I find myself looking back at it in a car park every time.
Yeah. And you will, and that's the thing with this car.
I think that's why it's grown on me as well.
Yeah. I mean, just a minute ago, you know, something that you would never ever have done before. You saw a 128 Ti, and you said, "Oh, look, there's a 128 Ti." You've never ever noticed BMWs on the road before.
No, I couldn't care less. Okay, I might appreciate a nice M3 or an M4, but I'm talking like E90s or something interesting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've grown into the BMW family over the last few weeks, and I'm doing my research, and I know model numbers, etc.
And now you understand why I love them so
I get it. I get it. I do get it. Absolutely.
So it's a bit of a strange one. And you know something? I can't think of many things that I dislike about this car.
No.
Everything else I love about it. I love the driving position. I love the seats. And I've got to say, if you're going to buy one of these cars, if you can live with the manual, go for the manual. If you buy the manual, don't buy the carbon bucket seats, because you'll find it slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you're going to get the automatic, find one with the carbon buckets, because I think those seats are they're incredible.
They're knockout. They're very comfortable.
Very, very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Because I think the M4 you drove had the carbon buckets in there as well.
It had carbon buckets. It was very, very comfortable. In automatic, great.
Yeah. It's in your face, but the best value for money new M car that currently exists.
Yeah.
I'm Jats. This is the T-Junction. I just want to say a massive thank you to Dhroov for being so open today and telling us his story about his little journey with changing to this car.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really, really good fun. I think it wouldn't be right if I didn't come back and talk about it after you helped me get it in the first place.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to you too for watching. And remember, if you have any car stories that you'd like to share, then please do get in touch. You'll find a whole plethora of videos now beginning to pop up on our channel, especially in the playlist that's called Passion for Cars, because there are some lovely reviews in there, and I'd encourage you to go and have a look at those. If you do like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that thumbs up button. We will see you on the next one. Thank you very much indeed for checking in. We're checking out. Thank you and goodbye.